Hello everybody. Now you know it if you're a painter. You have a file like this where you can apply whatever paint you like. Let's just quickly do that. So this is my new airline paint scheme. And then you're faced with the problem of applying this to the actual simulator files, which look more like this. So your job would now be to turn our paint scheme or parts of this fuselage, this complete fuselage, into little snippets that fit exactly this, well, separation here. This is very time consuming if you have to do this manually every time you change anything. The idea here is to use this master file within here to make sure every time you make a change here, where you can easily paint, and this change would then automatically be applied and split across all of these sections. The way to do this, at least the way I'm doing it, is to create a linked smart object which essentially points to this master file here and allows me to make changes here that automatically apply to these three parts. Obviously there are other ways of doing it. There are paint kits where you have like 3 different files, one for each section. Same thing, you would just do it a little differently. I'm sure once you've seen this, you have some idea of how to do this. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I want to do is get rid of my superbly creative paint here. Save that file, and then go back to this final output file. Now this one is a bit special. It's a BMP file. I think that's a little bit of an older paint kit. So the first thing I want to do is create a Photoshop file. So I say File, Save As, and here we just select Photoshop. Make sure you have your alpha channel selected if you have to do this, and off we go. Now we have a Photoshop file right here. Good. It's also a Photoshop file in here, so you can continue working with that. Okay, the next step we have ahead of us is to actually place or create that smart object I was talking about. Now, again, the idea is to have this file linked to this file. The idea is to make sure everything you do here, you just apply automatically to these files, which you never ever really touch ever again. Okay, so how to do this? You will go to File and say Place Linked, and choose the master file. Again, File, Place Linked, not embedded, linked. Embedded would make a copy. Every time you would change something, you would have to change it in a copy, which doesn't make any sense. You want one file, which is the truth. Everything else is just basically looking at that file. So we say Place Linked. Master fuselage, and here we go. So it places the file basically dead center. And you can just eyeball it for now. And in order to completely align it, I usually reduce the opacity a little bit so we can see like both of these files overlapping. I zoom in a little bit at like a door or something, and then just move it around until it is perfectly in focus. You see, if it's off by a pixel, it looks like blurry. If it's perfectly in focus, it is bang on. So, in this particular paint kit, we have the problem that there is a lot of overhead or overhanging stuff in our master paint kit. So we want to get rid of that. The way to do this is, well, first of all, let's hide this and see how far down this section goes. So this is about here. What I want to do is make like a little marker here. So we can say, give us a line here, give us a line there. Don't worry about that so much for now. And when I bring back this file here, completely fill it out again, you see, then I can just go and say, I want this section to be seen. And I do that by marking it and click on the layer mask icon down here. The moment I do this, it will create a mask, and that mask will mask everything below here, everything that's black here. So if you look into it, you can do this by holding the Alt key down. You see everything that's in the white area will be visible, everything that's in the black area will be invisible. Now you could also use gray or whatever just as a hint if you want something more transparent, but here we just need black and white. We don't want this part here of the image, but we want this part. So the next step would be to copy this 2 more times, 1 and 2. So I'll also rename that. That's the front section. I want to, well, I'll just leave it there. That's the middle section. And that will be our aft section. So for now, I don't need these 2 to be visible, and I want to get rid of these layer masks real quick. You can just drag them into the trash symbol here. What? No, I don't want to do the whole layer, just the mask. Okay, and now we go ahead with our middle section. You remember, same thing, we just reduced the opacity so we can actually see what we're doing. Kind of eyeballing it to get started with. Oh, that's a pretty good eyeball. Yeah, I think it's bang on. So you see, as soon as it's out of focus, you're not at the right place. As soon as it is in focus, you're bang on. Now this doesn't work as well with some other planes. Some other planes have markers. Each paint kit is a little different, but the method is mostly the same. So then we just make that all visible again. And remember, we just want to have this part here visible. So what we do is mark this. And we say, give us a layer mask. So this is the white part now. Remember, everything in the white will be visible. Everything else will not be visible. So just one more. Again, reduce the opacity. Eyeball it. Sort of. And I usually use the keyboard then because it's much more accurate. And here we go. That's pretty much bang on. So in this particular case, it's a little bit more difficult with the masking here. So I get started with this bit. Just say, show me all of this. Well, actually, just really need this to get started with. And I want to make sure that nothing that happens in the master paint file can intrude on this part here. So what I do is I say I want the lasso, usually the one with the pointy end. This one I find a bit annoying to use, it really depends on you. And I just say, well, slowly work your way along this. It doesn't have to be bang on or absolutely accurate, it just makes sure that none of these other areas are touched. So we slowly move our way across that. And then we just make this a little smaller, just make a few things, double click. And now everything here is essentially selected. And when I go into my mask here, you can see this is basically just black and white. I fill this part here in black, unselect, I go back, and now whatever I would do here doesn't show up. So let's really quickly do something to that, just to show that this would actually work. So if I completely filled this was purple, for whatever reason, then, oh, of course we need to fully opacity this. Yeah, then this would not be touched. That's the whole point of this. Okay, let's get rid of our purple layer here, save it, and you see everything's back to normal. So in order to prove that this does what it's supposed to do, let's create another paint scheme for our airline. I don't know why it's purple actually. Let's make it green, because green makes everybody happy. Growing up this green, this is a very shrill green, so have some yellow or whatever. Oh god, I'm making it worse. Yeah, red. The point is really that you see it's a complicated paint scheme if you like. I mean, obviously it's very simple, but if you had to do this in a way that you paint like part by part by part, it would be really difficult. So I'm going to save this for now. And you see it's basically applied all over the place here. And this is the 101 on how to make a smart object work. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, leave them below. Thank you for listening.